All right. Welcome to another episode of Founders Club. I'm really excited today to be talking to Sam Wegert. He owns 150 co-living doors, and we're going to be talking exactly about how to find the deals, how to put these deals together, and why co-living deals might be one of the best investment opportunities of this next market cycle. As always, make sure you like and subscribe. And if you like money and you like real estate, you're going to love this episode. We'll see you on the inside. Sam, welcome to Founders Club.
I'm so excited to be on, Oliver. Thanks for having me, man. This is an honor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Appreciate you coming on. And, excited to be talking about co-living. I think, more and more I hear about it as, one of the hotter things to be investing in right now. It's a way you can actually get cash flow in today's market where a lot of deals are getting skinnier and skinnier. The co-living space seems to be a really good opportunity still. So excited to learn more. And why don't you tell us a little bit about how you were able to scale to 150 co-living doors so quickly?
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be on. I'm excited to talk about co-living. I agree with you 100%. It's like one of those things. It's like bringing cash flow back to real estate, which is like, wait, that's like the whole reason we wanted to be in real estate in the first place. At least one of the main reasons, right? So it's cool that when single family homes can't make money anymore, when short-term rentals are having a difficult time and Airbnb's throwing additional fees on, they just added another one last week. I think they took all the host fees and stuck it on all the fees and stuck it on the host. When all that craziness is happening in some of these alternative asset classes, co-living has been emerging as like the one that's steady, that's consistent, and that's solving a big need of affordable housing, which I hope we get into today, because I think that's really the genius of this model is like we're solving a big need in America right now, and we're making cash flow. So it's like this beautiful win-win. But I think my wife and I just crossed 220 doors. So we're a little further than 150. That must be an old stat. I got to get my team up to that.
Nice.
And in our community, we've got 2,500. So we're one of the leading communities for kind of being evangelists, if you want to call it that, for the co-living space. And I think our secret to scaling, I wouldn't even say that we did it crazy fast. I bought my first home in 2011, but we have scaled maybe really fast in the last year or 2 years. And I think the secret to that has just been understanding exactly what a good co-living home is and how to stay away from what a bad co-living home is. I'd say another secret that maybe we could talk about today would be understanding regulations and understanding like where you can do co-living and where you really shouldn't do co-living, what you need to have in place to do co-living. Because if you get into, I've had some people that I know that buy 1 or 2 homes and they get in trouble with the city and they're like, I'll never buy another co-living home again. But really, they just didn't understand a couple of things that make this work. So I think that's a big key to this as well. And then, I know you talk about this on the podcast. I think I've heard you talk about it once of like, there is a velocity of money where like real estate is slow. And then one day it becomes fast when you get some momentum to it and you refinance a few homes or you sell some homes that now have some equity. And that's allowed us to kind of pick up here in the last few years. Whereas the first 5, 6, 7, 8 years I was investing in real estate, I was like, I'm never going to be able to quit my day job, but you can if you just stay at it. And I think that's a big secret I'd love for people to take away is like this becomes a second engine that burns real slow and then it burns real fast if you stay in the game. And that's the key.
All right. Yeah, no, I love it. I'm excited to kind of break down all the hows of putting deals together, finding deals, like you said, the regulations, things like that. But why don't we just start with just simply like what is co-living real estate investing and kind of how does it work?
I always ask people when they ask me this question, I say, have you ever had a roommate before? And obviously like every person in the room, raises their hand. I'm like, there you go. That's co-living. Like, thanks for coming to my talk. That's it. It's basically having roommates. The end. Yeah. Hope you guys got something from this podcast. That's it. That's it, Oliver, in a nutshell. It's you are taking a single family house and you are renting it by the room, keeping common kitchen, common living room, and allowing people to share. Now that the caveat, the little difference where you start to juice the returns is when you take rooms that would normally be common space. Think of like a dining room, a second living room, a basement, a garage, and you turn all those into extra bedrooms. So now you have a home that was advertised as a 4-bedroom or a 5-bedroom, and now it's 7, it's 8, it's 9, it's 10. It's 10 rooms. You still have a shared area. And that might, some people that are listening to this might be like, that's insane. How do you get 10 people to stay together, not kill each other? But like we can talk about it today. Hopefully we'll get into it a little bit as well of like, there are systems and things that we figured out over the last decade and a half on how to do this correctly and how to get people to get along and put the right people in. But ultimately, co-living is renting out rooms with a shared common space to individuals. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. And I definitely do want to learn more about the how you're keeping people out of each other's hair, because I'm sure
Yeah.
that's, dealing with all the tenants is
Yeah,
probably one of the trickier parts.
it is.
Um, so first, just kind of laying the foundation, like why is co-living a good investment? Why does it give higher returns than, say, an Airbnb or a traditional real estate investment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I can only give you an example of like there's a home we recently bought that would have rented for close to $2,500 to a single family, right? So that would have been the rent. Now, granted, with me renting it to a single family, I'm not having to pay the utilities because obviously the person renting is going to pay utilities. I have a certain amount of maintenance, but not as much maintenance as I do with co-living. And if I rent it to a single family, I have management. I have to pay somebody to manage it or manage it myself. But with co-living, you're going to have a lot more management costs when it comes to management. But even with those, I want just, for those of you that are listening to this podcast and you have somewhat of a numbers brain, you're in this for the numbers, then you think, okay, I'm renting it for $2,500. Now we turned that home into a 10-bedroom home that rented on average for about $825 a door. Now some were higher, some were lower, but ultimately it produced about $8,500. So with this home, if I'd rented it to a single family, I would have lost a couple $100 a month. I would have owned a great home, but if I'd rented a single family, and is anybody on here interested in buying real estate and losing money every month? I don't think so, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
with
not our audience.
not this audience, right? Maybe other podcasts, but not this one.
Yeah.
So when we're renting it out co-living, we implement these systems, and yes, we have additional costs, and I want to be very transparent about that. You have more management costs, you have more maintenance costs, you've got additional costs, you're paying for utilities, but even with that, now you have a home that net cash flows close to $3,000 or close to $3,500, even after all the additional costs. And so that's the beauty of this strategy. Now, I'll be transparent. That's not the home you're going to buy I'm not guaranteeing anybody those results. I'm just saying that's the power of this strategy of done well, of done correctly. That's what it's about. That's why it's a good investment. Maybe let me add one more thing onto that. The other reason it's a good investment is because and this isn't me just saying this, Oliver. This is the U.S. Department for Housing and Urban Development, otherwise known as HUD, recently came out with a notice that said, look, we believe co-living, shared housing, room rentals, whatever you want to call it, they called it co-living. We believe it can help solve affordable housing in America. They said every municipality should be trying to make it easier for these people to operate, these privately owned homes to operate, because we're solving affordable housing by bringing on a unit to a city, to a market, that is about 50 to 60% of what normally would be the cheapest thing in every market. So if you go into any city, what's the cheapest thing? Studio apartment. But we're coming at 50% of that. We're basically inventors. We're out there inventing brand new, beautiful, low price points for people to live. And it includes utilities. So for these people that are renting these rooms, one price, it includes everything. So it's truly one of those things. I've been bashed on social media before for this guy is just promoting the newest way for landlords to be greedy. And I will be the first to admit this is a high cash flowing strategy if done correctly. And I'll be the first to admit it can go south if you don't do it correctly and you'll never want to talk co-living again. But it is also providing cheaper housing options in a really cool communal way. So It is a win-win. And that's what I'm really passionate about.
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, cool. So I want to get into the, all the management and the tenants and things like that. But first, maybe what makes a good co-living property? Like, what are you looking for when you're looking to buy one of these types of deals?
Yeah. First of all, there's a lot of little nuances that we've learned, right? When we first started looking for co-living properties back in 2011, 2012, I had no clue what I was doing. And I was just buying little tiny homes, 2-bedroom homes, 3-bedroom homes. And that process has evolved. So now I get to give my students a decade and a half of here's how it's done now. And they don't have to go through that same learning process. So there's, we have this method, we call it the perfect co-living house method. It's our little way of saying, if you check these 35 boxes, this home's going to make money as long as it's operating correctly. But I'll give without going, we could probably spend the whole podcast on that, but I'll give the top 5 that I think are the most important. So number 1 is size. Size in a co-living home just does matter because your cash flow is going to be based on obviously how many rooms you can get in that home. And so a little formula I'll throw out there for your listeners is if you bring me a 2,000 square foot house, I'll just start at 2,000 square feet. no matter what the floor plan is, I know because I've looked at hundreds of these homes that's going to be a 6-bedroom home. Like I can get 6 rooms that I can rent out of that home. And then every 250, and by the way, I'd never look at anything less than that. I never look at anything smaller than that. Every 250 square feet you add onto that is going to be an additional room somewhere in that house that I could find. So if you bring me a 2,250 square foot home, it's 7 rooms. 2,500 is 8 rooms. 2,750 is 9. 3,000 is 10. That's a general formula for like size to bedroom ratio, right? So that's number one.
You're getting 10 bedrooms in a 3,000 square foot house?
Sometimes 11. That's the minimum we'll be able to get.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
Actually, that home I was telling you about that rents for like 8,500, it's 10 rooms. We actually just added an 11th room, and it fits that formula perfectly. It's like 3,260 square feet. So that would be 11 rooms according to that formula.
All right.
So that's number one. You've got size. You got it. The bigger, the better. I had a buddy in LA who was like, Sam, I love this co-living model. I'm going to buy this little house. And he brought me this little tiny, like 1,500 square foot house. I was like, look, man, I know homes are expensive in LA, but you are not like pay the extra and get a big house. And finally, it took him like 6 months. He finally found for like 800 grand or whatever it was. He found a big house, like 2,900 square feet. And he got 9 rooms out of that. And he cash flows amazing, several $1,000s a month off that home in LA, right? Which is just hard to do anyway. Wow. So size matters. The other thing I will say is the more bathrooms you have in these places, the better. So we're always looking for how we can add bathrooms, or if it has a lot of bathrooms already, like 2.5, 3 full bathrooms is like kind of gold for a co-living person, because you never want to have more than 3 people sharing one bath. So we call that the 3-to-1 bedroom to bathroom ratio. Now, in a perfect world, you have 1-to-1. And we're trying to create that in this world of, when we build ground up. I'm doing a couple of ground up construction projects right now where it's going to be almost a 1-to-1 ratio. And I've got some friends who are building these duplexes similarly in LA where it's like 100% 1-to-1 ratios. So the second thing would just be like bed to bath ratio, making sure you can add that and have that in. No HOA is really important. Like you don't want to be in a regulatory group like that. Just we've had lawsuits with HOAs and they're just never fun. And you don't really want to get into that. Yeah. Yeah, most people don't have great experiences with HOA, period, especially investors. So we're just like, hey, stay away. And then I would say the other thing that's really important is this home that you're buying for co-living, is it a good neighborhood fit? And what I mean by this is I had a student bring me a deal recently, and he said, Sam, this is one I want to buy. It's in Charleston, South Carolina, which is a very old money, kind of nice, litigious city. And man, I got on Google Earth and I started driving around the home he was going to buy. And I was like, dude, don't buy it. Like everybody's grass is cut perfectly. I don't see a single car parked in the street. There's the white picket fence. I said, every neighbor is going to be complaining about the extra 2 cars you have in there. And then he's like, okay, so finally I convinced him not to buy it. And then next week he went to another neighborhood to look for a home, and he sent me a video, and there was like a work truck in the person's front yard. There was a couple people on the street. There was even a goat in someone's front yard. I was like, okay, maybe you went too far on the other end of the spectrum here. But if someone's grass is a little bit long and I drive into a neighborhood, I think, good. There's a work truck in front of someone's yard. You can tell they're a blue collar worker and they got their work truck at home with them. Good. Right. That's if you're a real estate investor, B-, B+, right? Those are the kind of neighborhoods you want to be in. And that's huge. Yeah. Otherwise, you're just asking for a bunch of problems.
Yeah. I think the critical note there is don't piss off the neighbors.
It is. Don't be in the NIMBY neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then parking would be kind of the final one. If I was to give you like the 5th final one, it would be like making sure that parking. Now in San Diego, I don't know how your guys' like public transport system in, but in a lot of the cities we're investing in are these like 2nd-tier cities. They're not the New York, San Diego, San Francisco's, LA's. They're the Jacksonville's, Charlotte's, Phoenix's, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, those types of cities, right? In those types of cities, a lot of those cities, you don't have great public transportation. So a lot of your members are going to have cars. So you need to be able to check the box of, do I have enough parking to make this work? And so that's kind of the final thing. If you check those 5 boxes, that's not everything, but that is a hell of a lot of a way towards like what this home kind of looks and feels like. And the last little warning I'll give to your listeners is don't go to luxury. This is workforce housing for people who make $15 to $30 an hour. They don't need all the granite countertops, pool, hot tub. Like, don't make this an Airbnb. Like, you can, but it's probably not needed or necessary. And it's just not the model. We call it nice enough. Is it nice enough for the people that we're serving to be clean and quiet and safe?
No, that makes total sense. So, okay. So I think that paints a pretty good picture of like what we're
Yeah.
looking for in terms of the types of housing. Now, how are you finding most of your deals? Are you just buying off market? Are you just hitting the MLS and going shopping? Like what's your
Yeah.
strategy there?
Hit the MLS and go shopping. I mean, look, I think there will come a day, Oliver, where where you will co-living is one of those things where it's like Airbnb back in 2011, 2012, where it was like, wait, what? That works? How does that work? How are they not going to destroy your home? Or Uber when it first came out, when everybody was like, that's crazy. That's never going to work. Like, how's that person not going to mug you in your car while you're driving them where the app's telling you to go somewhere, right? Like that's where co-living is right now. So there will come a day where you have to find these properties off market and get super creative. But we're not at that day right now. We're at the beginning stages of this. And I say that because you can go on market. I guarantee you, and I do this so often now, if you gave me a city, minus maybe your city, San Diego or San Francisco, I can find a deal on Zillow in probably under 10 minutes, have it sort of underwritten and tell you, hey, this is a cash flowing $2,000 a month cash flowing deal. Like we can get there real fast in most major cities right now and on market. So we don't have to. That's one
Very
of the beautiful
cool. I
things
mean,
about it.
that's exciting because I think a lot of investors are, the hardest thing is to find the deal. It sounds
Yeah,
like you're saying there's almost deals everywhere as long as it checks the boxes,
that's right.
and that you can just buy them on market, which is
That's right.
very cool.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
Um, so now let's talk about like what markets, what do you like about a market? What do you not like about a market, right? Like you mentioned regulations earlier. Like what are
Mhm.
some things that make a market a green light versus a red light?
Yeah, well, co-living friendly is definitely one of the green lights. And you can find this out in a variety of ways. It's not always obvious if a city is co-living friendly or not. Like you can call, really what you want to find out is that city actively looking and hunting down co-living homes? And there are a few out
Are
there
they
that
what?
obviously
Actively looking for what?
looking and hunting down and shutting down co-living homes. Because
Got it.
there are a
Okay.
few cities that are like, we don't like this. We don't want this as a way to solve affordable housing. Don't bring it to our town, kind of thing.
Okay.
Nashville was that way for a while. They're loosening up a little bit. Nashville, Tennessee, Sarasota, Florida is that way. There's a few little cities. There's few. Now, a lot of cities are embracing it. States are embracing it. Colorado,
And how
you
are
know,
you finding that out? Like, is it a particular type of zoning you look for, or is it like,
no,
you know,
it's not, because a lot of these are in single family zones. So that's why I kind of chuckle, because it's a very nuanced thing. Because I mean, the baseline thing would just be to call the zoning department and say, I'm a potential investor. Don't give me your name, but like I'm a potential investor and I'm thinking about buying co-living homes where I rent by the room. What is your guys' appetite for that? Do you
right,
have a restriction based on the number of unrelated people in this town? And they hopefully will give you some sort of answer of like, yeah, we hate that. We're shutting them down all over the place. Or like, no, we're super open. We know it's up and coming. But in actuality, what I have the privilege of is we now have students in probably 40 to 45 cities around the United States. So I have the pulse. So like,
okay,
of knowing like, this city, they're actively, because these things are changing. It's a very rapidly growing. So like, Denver wasn't friendly to co-living. And now the whole state of Colorado, there's a whole law that said we aren't going to regulate any unrelated people in any city. The governor signed this into law about a year and 3 months
wow,
ago now. So it's very changing. These rules are updating. New Hampshire just did something pro co-living. New York City and the 5 boroughs just did something very pro co-living. So it's a very much a nuanced thing. But you need
okay,
to do some research, whether that's reaching out to me or just calling the city and finding out what their appetite is. And that's co-living friendly, right? How co-living friendly
okay,
is it? The other two questions that we always coach people to ask whenever they're looking at a market is and by the way, this is the most important one, because like you said earlier, you actually mentioned this. You said, so it doesn't sound like it's hard to buy. You can go on market and find deals. 100% true. I can go in almost every city and find you a good cash flow and co-living deal. That's not the hard part right now of co-living. The hard part is they're difficult to manage. And unless you plan on self-managing, you may not have a lot of options of just managers you can ask to manage this
right,
property. Oliver, if you and I have single family homes or multifamily homes, every major city, there's hundreds of options. If I
yeah,
don't like them, fire them, hire another one. If they don't like them, fire them, hire another. You can't do that with co-living. You kind of stuck with 1 to 2 people in every major city right now. And that's kind of scary unless you're going to self-manage. So I say that to say, And that's changing, by the way. There's managers popping up all over the place. People are putting in systems. I own a property management company here in Charlotte, Nashville. So there's a lot of different ways that that's shifting. But the number one question you got to ask before you go into a city is literally, can I manage it here? Do I have a team I trust? Am I willing to build a team I trust if I don't? And if the answer is no, people ask me all the time, Sam, where's the best city for co-living? And I never answer it with a city. I always say, well, where can you manage it well? Because that's going to be your best city for co-living, not where the demographics are.
Yeah. So that's the key.
Yeah, it's so hard. Yeah. That's the caveat.
Let me also ask that question a different way. Like, are you finding that most places are cool with it, or are you finding it's very difficult to find a market that is cool with it?
Yeah. No, it's very difficult to find. Most places are cool with it.
Okay.
Now we have a legal strategy in place where we are somewhat protected even if the city does come after us. We don't use a lease model. I don't lease my home to 8 individuals. I lease my home to another company. So I have one lease agreement on my house, and that company is like set up like a club. It's like a fraternity club, like a country club where it has a bunch of members join, and then they together rent the house as one person. Because in the LLC, in America, LLC is one person. So I'm technically only leasing my house to one person, and then a bunch of members have the ability to use the house. It's a hack. It's a gray area.
You're renting to a business, and that business is renting out the rooms individually.
Yes, on these like membership agreements, which I help people set up. But it's a hack. It's a gray area. It's how the biggest companies are getting around a lot of these like occupancy rules and laws.
Got it.
Now, I will say in most cities, even in Charlotte where I live, there's definitely, we kind of have to play a little game, right? We play a little game. We work with these code enforcement officers. We get calls in every once in a while where we have to talk them through what we're doing. Dallas Fort Worth is the same way. We kind of play this little game where for harm's there. But as long as you know kind of how to get around it, and you have the right legal structure, it's been fine. We're not seeing homes just actively get shut down really anywhere. So that's beneficial.
Yeah. So we've identified the type of property we like. We've identified a market that we like, that we feel like we can manage in. And I want to get to the management piece for sure in a minute. But let's talk about how we're setting up these houses. Like, are you buying them turnkey, or are you buying them and then doing a bunch of construction to kind of build these out and add all these, rooms?
Yeah. You're gonna in almost every co-living house that you have, if you're converting it from say 4 bedrooms to 8 or 4, you're gonna have some sort of construction. And that could be 2 walls and some doors and some closets, or putting some armoires in there, like the closets that are like in hotels, that kind of just mount to the wall. But you're probably and then it could that's on one end, and then on the more intense end of a rehab, you might go in and you might say, all right, I want to add. There was a house recently that I added 2 baths, 2.5 baths. I took a half to a full, and I added 2 more. I want it to be a 5 full bath home. So, I mean, it could be that's on the extreme end, or converting a garage to 2 more rooms or 3 more rooms. Like that's more on the extreme end.
And then, so how much would you say, like on average, you're putting in above and beyond the purchase price to convert it to, match your needs for what you're looking to do?
Yeah, probably 20 to 40,000, 20 to 50,000.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. We have a strategy where the market's a little softer right now. So we have a strategy we use where we ask, when we negotiate this for our students, we ask the seller of the property to pay for that rehab. And then at closing, they write a check. We're very successful in getting that done. It's kind of our way of trying to keep a lot of the cash out of the pocket.
Wow.
So that works a lot of times too. But there's always some work that has to be done.
And then when you're adding a bedroom, is it literally just walls and a door, or are you adding like closets and anything else?
Closets. Yeah, just closets. We don't furnish our rooms. Some companies out there will tell you to furnish your rooms. We believe that the room is the new apartment. And if the room is becoming the new apartment in America, which I believe it's like we have a trend in affordable housing towards that, then like I want people to move their own stuff in, sign a 12-month agreement, think this is home, really be settled in their place and move their own. I don't want it to have an Airbnb short-term rental feel. So really, we're just furnishing common areas as part of the setup. And obviously there's some costs there, but it's negligible. You're furnishing a kitchen in one room, basically. One additional room.
And then you mentioned kind of 3 to 1 is the bathroom ratio. 1 to 1 is most ideal, but obviously much harder to do.
Much harder.
So we've got that. How are you setting these up to keep people happy and out of each other's way?
Yeah. Well, the biggest thing is just to have a home that still flows well, right? Like I've seen people put rooms in weird spots. I've seen people do all kinds of crazy, weird things. So you want to think of like, okay, is this house flow? That's why we look for larger homes. I'm not trying to cram people in. I want them to have larger bedrooms. I want them to be separated. But there's a lot of different things that you need to do on the side of the management. I'll give you kind of three huge ones. One, and there are three things that if you do consistently in a co-living house, you will succeed. And these three
Okay.
things are: it's clean, consistently clean, not just clean at one point in the month. Clean, it's quiet, and it's safe. So on the clean side of things, we're going to have a checklist that people have to complete to support with the cleanliness of the home. And they have to do it rotates. One person does it every week so there's 8 people in the home. Every 8 weeks, one person's up. Now if they're like, that sounds like chores, don't treat me like a teenager, then they can opt out. It's $50 a month, and we have someone do their week. No problem. Easy peasy. But that's one thing. Then we have professional cleaners come in once or twice a month, reset all the common areas. It's a cheap clean because they're just cleaning the common areas. But there's, those are some things that we do on the clean side. And then obviously just having some really strict rules that they sign off on when they first enroll to say, look, you're not allowed any common areas in the personal, you're not allowed any personal items in the common space. Like just keep that out. If the cleaner comes in, she's going to put it in a box. If it's still there next week, she's throwing it away. So that's clean. Quiet is really important to have some sort of household. I think of like an Airbnb in a neighborhood. I have an Airbnb on the lake here in Charlotte, and that might say something like, we have quiet hours because the neighbors always call the cops if they're like noisy after 10. It's similar, but you need that in a co-living home. So you need to have some quiet hours after a certain hour. We call them headphones hours because like you guys can watch TV. I don't care. You can game if you want, but like just have headphones on if you're going to do that. And so that's a system, a house rule that's really important. And then we have a limit, a cap on overnight guests. It's 5 per month. And that way someone doesn't end up living with them. You're not having someone over every time. And I'll say, look, in a decade, in almost a decade and a half of doing co-living, 2 noise complaints, maybe 3, right? So you compare that to like an Airbnb, one Airbnb that I have on the lake. Oh my gosh, I feel like every weekend the neighbor's calling the cops on me. So you're not in that same vibe. You're in a home vibe, not a party vibe. And that normally is not going to be a big issue unless you just let anybody in your homes. So that's clean, that's quiet. And the third thing you got to do is safe. And safe, if you do safe, it's very important. So we have cameras. We have cameras in the common area, right? Obviously, we have no cameras in any area where there's an expectation of privacy. That's against the law. But in the common areas, it's okay. Front door, side door, with trash cans. I mean, like just having that kind of covered is really important. Having locks, keyless entry locks on every door, keyless entry locks in the front, very important. And so I think for us, that having different house rules, we don't allow weapons in the property. We do full background checks. Really, safety comes down to just how you vet your members. Are you letting people in that have a history of violence or some sort of crime? And if you are, that's on you, right? So you need to do the right thing there by just keeping people out that might have some sort of a history of that. But then locks and systems and different house rules to make sure people are not bringing in things they shouldn't bring in.
Yeah.
But if you do those three things,
quiet,
clean,
and
safe, you can scale co-living. That's what it takes to scale co-living. Now, there's a bonus one, a fourth one I sometimes talk about, where if you really want to take your home to the next level, you do clean, quiet, safe, and community. You do something, some little thing to provide a community in that home. Whether it's providing a pizza night or trying to throw an event for your members or something like that to try to bring them together, because it's a very intimate space. It's home.
Yeah.
Hard to do at scale, but the people who have cracked that, barbecues, we have one home that throws a barbecue every Friday. Members all get together. I mean, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
I like how you keep referring to them as members.
Yeah. That's the membership agreement model. I have to say that.
Right. Exactly. So, okay, cool. So next question I have is kind of how you manage these common areas. Like, I imagine, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm imagining this is a lot of like single people that just maybe they're professionals or blue collar folks that mainly just, need a place to sleep, need a place to lay their head, maintain a pretty low profile, things like that. But how does it work for like the common areas and especially like the kitchen? I'm imagining if there's 8 to 10 people living in a house, like what are the rules around like cooking and cleaning and refrigerator space and cupboard space and all that?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of little systems, little things, hacks. When I first started co-living, I always told people like, I have peanut butter problems. And everybody was like, what's peanut butter problems? And a peanut butter problem is where you get John in room 4 calls you up and says, I left my peanut butter out and Susie from room 6 came and ate my peanut butter. I'm so mad. And I need you to deal with it as the landlord. I remember when I first started having these problems, I was like, man, if this is what co-living's about, like F this, like I'm out. I don't want to deal with this. But you do get some of those kind of BS type things. And so there are little things you can do that we've learned to do to just really minimize a lot of those. So yes, um, it is labeling every shelf in the fridge, room 1, room 2. Like this is your shelf and no one else's, and having one fridge per 6 people really helps too. Or it is labeling every, where they put their detergent. It's like they don't see they chose detergent, right? It's labeling the cabinet space. It's labeling all the rooms. It's just a basic labeling system that's important. Everybody
So the
always
same way
asks
you're kind of breaking down the rooms, you're breaking down the cupboards and the refrigerator
everything.
and
Yes.
labeling like this is room one's part of the fridge.
Yes, you have to. Otherwise, things just get so messed up. And when someone moves out, you don't know where to take, you don't know where to we don't know what shelf to clear out.
Mm.
We even started to label for a few homes. We started to label parking. This is room 1 parks here next to the mailbox on the street. Don't park anywhere else because like that, right? To be able to get all the cars where we needed them to be. So you can get as detailed as you want, kind of set up the plan from the beginning. These homes require a little bit of setup. Once you've got them set up, once these things are in place, and they can run really smoothly. So the common space, I think we already talked about having cameras there and really support, just making sure you're kind of monitoring that. Believe it or not, in none of our homes, even in like the 11-bedroom homes, we have no schedule for laundry and we have no schedule for like cooking. You'd be surprised at how few people actually bake or cook. They get Uber Eats and they're grabbing a pizza on the way home. Like it's not that. So I think we've done a good job. That doesn't need to happen. You'd be surprised. A lot of people are like, oh, if I buy a home and it's got 2 kitchens, it's going to be better. It's like, no, you don't need 2 kitchens actually. Well, I've converted a second kitchen in a home to a room before. So I think that that's really important to do.
Wow. And what about like the primary bedroom and primary bath? Because most of the times that bathroom is in the primary
Right.
bedroom.
Yeah.
Are you like breaking that down and kind of sectioning it off, or is that
No,
just like the penthouse suite and you
that's like the
charge more for that?
penthouse suite. Yeah, that's like a $1,200 room. That's
Okay.
and frankly, like I had a student recently that was going to add a couple of bathrooms to her co-living home, and I said, "Look, you already let's make." We ended up somehow configuring the bathrooms where she could have 3 private suites, and everybody else would kind of share the 1 or 2 bathrooms that were left. And I was like, "That's the way to go because the private suites are nice. They rent fast. They're good. They're beautiful. People love them. That gives them more privacy." So if you can configure it in a way where you have more of those, yes. Now, do you have to add more bathrooms? Of course you do. And is there a cost to that? Yeah. I mean, here in Charlotte, it's 10 to 15 grand to add a full bath. But it kind of adds up. Like you kind of get your money back pretty soon because you can charge me here. You can charge $500-$600 more per month for a private bath. So it's a good investment if you run the numbers out on it. That's what we
Okay.
found.
No, I like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
sticking kind of on this management side of things, what about like dispute resolution? Like you mentioned so far, like
Yeah.
Susie ate my peanut butter or so and so's hogging up the bathroom or, anything like that.
Yeah. I pulled up a thing here just to kind of read off a few things. I think this will be helpful. I think one of the things that I love telling people about co-living is like, look, I believe it's the highest cash flowing asset in real estate that's consistent right now. Airbnbs obviously can do amazing, can be great, but like we're seeing not the same as we did a couple of years ago with Airbnbs. Some volatility there. I own 8 of them, so I know. But what's the difficult part? What's the catch? Well, the catch is this: what we're talking about right now, Oliver, which is the management. So yes, you need to have systems in place for how to deal with every single thing. And I'll just read off some of the things that you'll have to deal with. And that you need a flow for. I'm looking at literally my SOP for my company because we manage about 500 rooms here in Charlotte. So like, here's our SOP for how we handle when someone is smoking in the house and they shouldn't be. They're smoking weed, they're smoking a cigarette. They shouldn't. No smoking on premises. One of our very clear house rules. How do you deal with that? And usually it's some sort of system of like, well, we warn them and then we charge them a fee. If they still do it, we freaking kick them out of the house, right? But that's one thing you're going to have to deal with. Another thing is, what if someone's bringing over too many guests? And they're kind of are trying to sneak in someone or someone starts living with them. You're going to have an SOP for that. It's a lot of what I help people set up. Like, here's the SOPs. And I'm just seen it. I don't want to say I've seen it all, because every time I get on a podcast and I tell them I've seen it all, something happened that I never have seen before. We had someone pass away in a
Yeah.
room the other day, and it was like really sad, but someone literally called us and was like, "Hey, there's a smell coming from room 4." And I was like, that was new. I hadn't seen that before. So like that type of stuff. So too many guests, you got to deal with that. You've got to deal with what happens when someone's being really dirty. They're not doing
Yeah.
certain things in the kitchen that they should. What happens if someone's being aggressive? You got to have a flow for that. What happens if there's pests in the home and someone's maybe being dirty and letting, bringing critters in? Obviously, what happens if they're not paying? What if they're breaking a rule? One of the other rules, if they bring weapons in, what if they're just not locking the front door? Like, as simple as it is, we found like people want to feel safe and someone just walks in and they forget to lock the door. We don't have, there's all kinds of ways around that. But I'm just throwing this out there as a few things. What happened? We have a whole SOP for when the Wi-Fi goes down. What does that look like? How do we check in with them? So those are just a few of the SOPs you're going to need. Some sort of 3 strikes and you're out rule seems to just work best. Unless it's violence, unless it's aggression, then it's immediate. And when you have this membership agreement structure, we are allowed to kick people out faster. We can terminate their membership agreement really quickly and remove them from the home. And so there is some benefit to that as well.
Oh, that's very cool. So because it's a membership, you get around some of those rules and you can remove them quicker.
You do.
If they're
You almost
not
have to.
obeying by the club rules.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. You broke the
Very
house
cool.
rules. You broke the club rules. We're going to terminate your membership effective 24 hours from now.
So generally it sounds like any issues are just kind of like give them a warning, maybe give them another warning, and then give them a fine. And then if they still do it, 3 strikes and you're out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a general format to follow with good scripts that run that balance between loving and firm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What about just managing the money, collecting the payments? Do you have a software or system for that, or what? How do you make that easy on yourself?
Yeah, there's a tech stack that we have to manage at our scale. We use a company called Appfolio. We then use a custom software that we created called Co-Living Lead Pro. It's one that how we manage like the hundreds of leads we have coming in every month and communicate with our members. So there's a lot of that. But I would say that if someone's just getting started and they have a few homes, there's a lot of softwares out there that can handle the background check and the collecting of rent, whether it's Door Loop is a good one for rooms. Turbo Tenant can do it pretty well. Appfolio is a great one, but they're a big company, and I think they only will touch you if you have in the hundreds of doors. Yeah. So there's another one I'm drawing a blank on that Inago. It's one we have some students use. Yeah. So that's pretty simple. That's kind of set up like you would rent anything. A room. Okay. How you set up the home is
what are the terms around payments? Just kind of standard schedule, like 3-day grace period or whatever, and then that increases.
Yeah, doing the first late by the 5th. I think that's law for North Carolina. Eviction proceedings kind of start on the 10th.
And then what about finding tenants when someone moves out? What are your strategies around kind of filling the rooms and keeping it full?
Yeah. I can hit some of this at a high level. It's a whole course we teach on how to do this. But ultimately the biggest thing you want to think about when you're renting a room is a lot of people that rent rooms are going to be economically driven to rent a room. And they may even be in some sense of urgency to get a room. And so you're going to want to just be in every window that you possibly can be in. We call it, if there are a lot of people for a room, they window shop. Hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? Location is not as important as it is price and the fact that it's just clean and safe, right? So I think for us, there's a million platforms you can list on, and you should list on all of them if you're really trying to fill your room. That could be everything from Facebook Marketplace to Zillow now has a place where you can. That's what's cool. A lot of these big platforms, man, are now Zillow just fairly recently, last few months, launched a whole section where it's room for rents. You used to not be able to do that on Zillow, right? Unless you put it in the description. So that's cool. There's a lot of these big platforms allowing you to list. So you list, you have your vetting process, the whole process that we go through to do a vibe check, to meet them in person. We want good members in the homes, right? It's kind of the whole goal of this. Background check, credit check, income verification, similar to if you were renting a single family home or an apartment building or something like that. You're going to want to go through that. But the listing is, follow the same process as if you were to list anything. Don't use your cell phone to take the photos. Have good photos. have good copy, have a good description, right? Just describe what you're trying to create, describe your vision for your co-living home, what we're trying to create, and get people pumped about, oh, this is a movement I'd want to be a part of. So we kind of play to some of those things. And I think last month here in Charlotte, we had over 800 people reach out, and we have about 30 vacant rooms. So 800 to 30, you do the math on that. Now, there's always obviously a churn, but
Wow. Yeah.
it's in high demand in a lot of areas, especially if
Yeah.
the
I mean,
price is right.
that's really impressive. So it sounds like there's a lot of demand for this type of unit.
At
Love
the
that.
right price. A lot of people go into co-living and think they can charge what an apartment building charges for
So
a
that, yeah,
studio.
that was literally going to be my next question is
Yeah.
like, how are you pricing these based on the
Yeah.
market?
60% of a studio, 60 to 70% of a studio apartment is what you
Oh,
can. Now
that's a good way to look at it.
there's a whole range of this though, because it's like if the room is smaller, it's going to demand less. If it has a private entrance, it's going to demand. But there's an
Yeah.
art, not so much
Bathroom,
as
no bathroom, like
exactly carpeted versus hardwood. Is it open ceiling versus really dank and nasty? Is that like there's an art to pricing rooms, and we just recommend but this is an economically driven business. And that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about co-living moving forward, is because I believe when you go through a recession, when wars break out, when crazy stuff happens in the economy, there's really two players that survive in there are the high end, because the rich will always be rich and have money and the low end. And so we're on the low end. We are the economically driven option that's people like, okay, I'm moving to this.
yeah.
People always ask us, how did you survive during COVID? How did it work during COVID? Who would be living in a community rental during COVID? And all I have to say is like, everybody was scared economically. They didn't know what was going to happen. So our
Yeah.
leads
Gotta
shot through
live
the
somewhere.
roof. Yeah, like we
Yeah.
had more inquiries than we'd ever have during COVID, because everyone was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a job. I need to reduce my expenses. I need to. And so that was a really powerful experience for us to be like, this does well in those times. And
Yeah.
my
Yeah, no, it
bet,
makes total sense. Yeah.
I was just going to say,
What
my
about
bet
pets?
in the
What are
next,
your thoughts on pets?
yeah, pets is, you don't want to allow them.
Is that
I
like a
mean, it's
hard
just,
no?
it is a hard no. Yeah. I mean, you could, I've asked my team to consider it, my management team, and they always kick back really hard when I tell them we should allow pets. I'm like, here's my philosophy is like, maybe if they're not allowed to come out of their room into the main house,
Yeah.
it's
You can
like
have a fish.
there's a deposit, there's this, and that has a separate entrance and a separate bath. Like maybe in
Mm,
those suites, you allow them and you charge an extra fee. We just start
yeah.
allowing couples in some of the rooms if it has some of those elements and there's enough parking, etc. But that's something to consider for sure. I'm
Cool.
not a huge fan of them. Service animals are a little tough. Again, just explain to someone, hey, this is really not the best environment for a service animal. It's just really not. You have people allergic. It's not. I mean, and if they insist on it, then you can, you can just create a bunch of guidelines around it. It can never be there without
Yeah.
you. It can never be out of your room. And usually, someone who loves their animal is just not going to put up with that.
Right. Yeah. Might not be the best fit.
It's not. It's usually not. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well, a couple quick questions to wrap up. Um, in 60 seconds or less, what does it take to be successful co-living investor?
Identifying the right properties. And it takes building out a good, strong management team that knows some of these nuances and willing to deal with the BS. If I had to just summarize it in one sentence, I would say you buy the right home, you win the battle. You have the right management team, you win the war of co-living, and you can cash flow. That's the key.
And what is on a, like when you say management team, how many people, like what sort of a team are you putting together?
It's really a management team is really in three parts for co-living, and
Yeah.
not yeah. So you got maintenance, you got your maintenance side of things, it's pretty standard for any place. You've got your
Yeah.
leasing side of things, the people or the person responsible for filling it, and then the
Yep.
big one that's different though is you have a member support team.
Got it.
And that team's going to be pretty active at 500 rooms. You're going to have some, that's the dispute you mentioned. So it's like some of those are the same, right? Every company has leasing and maintenance, leasing and maintenance, leasing and maintenance. We add on a third division, and that division is who's handling, who's mediating when that needs to happen, who's kicking someone out when all that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And then last question. I have two young boys at home, 8 and 10. What would your advice be to them and the next generation on how to be successful in business and in life?
Wow. That's a big question, man. I think I'll say two things really fast. One, my parents have 8 kids. all of their kids are very successful in their own right, and I'm very impressed with how well they did. And one of the things that they believed in was putting their kids around mentors. Like they weren't so proud to think that they had to teach their kids everything. When I was 13 years old, they got me a mentor, a martial arts mentor, and he became like a second father figure to me. And I learned so much from him. So they were always putting us in environments where we could learn, where older, more mature people could take us under their wing and we could learn from them. And it was beautiful. I mean, I had a martial arts mentor that ended up selling me a business at 16 years old with his support and his coaching. It was so powerful. Wow. So that's number one, I think, is just good. There's nothing else I would pay more for or put more time and energy into other than mentorship under good business leaders, good people where there's a mutual benefit. The second thing I think for me was I think my secret was just luck, in that I just started buying things young. I got the idea of like, I'm going to save every cent I can. I'm going to buy something. I think the people that'll be left behind in this next season as the wealth gap continues to grow, it's just people who don't own shit, like literally own like equities. And that's why I'm passionate about this model, is because we're helping people that don't own things. They're getting left behind and nobody's like really focusing on them. So get into the first house with 3% down on a primary residence loan, like, and co-live it. Like, just own it and then do that once a year. That's how I did my first 5 homes, was primary residence, move out in a year, primary residence, move out in a year, and fill all my rooms after I left, right? That's the secret, I think.
Love that. No, that's great. Well, Sam, I certainly appreciate it. For those that want to learn more, I know you have a 5-week course, and I know you do some programs and stuff. So where can they find that? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, they can follow me on Instagram at Sam Wegert, just my name, at SAMWEGERT, just for fun content and kind of follow my life there. The second thing, though, if this has sparked any interest in someone of saying, I want coaching, I want mentorship, I'd like to dive into this deeper. Once a month, I do a 5-day challenge. It's an hour of live training a day. I bring in some of the best teachers from myself, but some of the other best teachers and coaches and mentors in the co-living space that is absolutely amazing. And we deep dive into it. So go to www.scaleyourrealestate.com, www.scaleyourrealestate.com. There's 2 R's next to each other on that URL, and just get in the waiting list for the next one. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys soon. Yeah. Thank you all for this opportunity, and let me just rant and rave about something that I really believe is helping people and helping investors as well.
Yeah. Again, appreciate your time. This has been really awesome. I think you broke down the full formula on how we can go out there and win with this. And for everyone listening, make sure you like, subscribe, leave us a comment, let us know what market you're in, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Oliver.